cars are out on the track. We're in readiness for the Grand Prix, which is not too far away. And we've got all the build-up rather, and the tension which goes with the first race for the season. And this should be an absolute beauty. A lot of question marks over a lot of things this year. And Alan Jones, I guess we're going to have those answered before the afternoon's out.
Exactly, Ken. I mean, there's certain teams out there that have got more data to use than others. There's some that certainly would have liked a longer session. It didn't do them any favours on Friday, being wet and dry and so forth. They would have liked a longer, drier period to sort these cars out. What I particularly like about the new regulations is that the cars definitely move around a lot more on the circuit. You can really see these drivers now earning their money. What's going to be very interesting is the first couple of corners, obviously, because the tyres won't be up to racing temperature, and we'll see a lot of cars moving around quite a lot. Well,
Jacques Villeneuve says it tends to bring the field up to him, or up to the really good, classy drivers. Do you think it extends a driver's ability, these new regulations?
Well, I think that it doesn't really matter what you're in, or what steering wheel you've got in front of you. If you're a good driver, you'll beat a bad driver. And I think what Jacques is getting at, really, is that he thinks that perhaps the level of commitment and skill in the old regulations was perhaps harder to attain. He probably thinks now with these regulations that the limit has been brought down a little bit, and therefore the lesser drivers will be able to attain that limit easier.
Alan, so many lessons to come from this afternoon's GP. I mean, when will these cars be really at their optimum? Will it be 3 or 4 races into the season?
Yes, I think so. I think they'll learn an enormous amount from this race. They'll go back to Europe and put that into practice, and I think by about the 3rd or 4th Grand Prix of the season we'll really see these cars pretty much at their optimum.
Because there's nothing like race conditions. You can test all you want through the off-season, but until you're out there on a racetrack with a full field, you don't know what the car's capable of.
Absolutely, that's correct. But, Formula One being what it is, they're forever testing and developing and pushing the limits. In fact, I wouldn't be at all surprised if most of these teams have got a spare car or a test car. They have a test team now, which is the equivalent of what my Formula One team used to be when we were racing for the championship. And, they've probably got a test driver and a test team somewhere in Europe testing out new developments as we speak.
Alan, are we going to see the emergence of some new powerful teams that are going to challenge the teams that have been around for such a long time, be it McLaren, be it Williams, be it Ferrari?
I don't know. These teams are what they are by no accident. They have the budget, they have the personnel, they have the technology. Cream rises to the top, and, they are up there for a reason, and that's simply because they are the best. It is good, however, to see another team, and this could very well be one of them. That car is a lovely-looking little car, and, I'd love to see Arrows or Eddie Jordan, win a couple of Grand Prix this year.
All right, well, the big man is down there trying to match it with the sound of the Formula Ones. Come in, Darrell Eastlake.
Yeah, thank you, Kenny. What a great place to be on the grid just minutes before the start of a Grand Prix. We're here on the pole front row, as you can see, and Mika Häkkinen underneath an umbrella at the moment. He's getting final instructions, talking to the engineers. He looks nice and relaxed. He looks calm. And I remember Alan Jones saying he used to be able to get in the car and snap that visor down, and he just shut everybody out. So Mika Häkkinen at the moment just going for a walk off the grid. The tyre warmers are going on now, and that car looks ready for business. They're also pumping some cool hot ice, they call it here, cold ice, onto the radiators to keep it nice and cool. So the McLaren looking good, but we might just go for a walk down onto the grid here. As we come back, you can see that steam and that cool air going onto the radiators as they come off there. Now, we might just give you a quick look at the engine. What about that? And, Jonesy, you might like to make a comment there. There's that Mercedes-Benz engine.
Yeah, it's actually made by Gilmore, an engineering company in England, and it's made for Mercedes-Benz. It's more powerful, obviously, than the one last year. They've got it sitting a little bit lower in the chassis. They've got Adrian Newey now, that was for many years with the Williams team. He's an absolute aerodynamicist, a specialist in aerodynamics. And they've got things pretty well as right as you can get them in this team at the moment. But funny you should mention that, Daz. Whenever I used to go up to the grid like this, I always used to stay in the car because, to hop in and out of these things now with crutch straps and belts and radios and aerials and air supply pipes and all the rest of it, it's a real aggro getting in and out. And I used to like just sitting in the car and, as you say, put the visor down, start getting my mind ready for the start of the race and getting away from all or anybody that can be a distraction.
AJ, just while I've got you there's been a lot of controversy with this car, or these two cars, over this meeting and for some months, because they do have a second brake paddle. Now, what they're saying is that is a driver aid, and as you can see, it may be a form of traction control. Very quick to throw the covers over the McLarens right over this meeting. There's a cover on the front wing. A cover's just gone over the induction area here. There's a cover on the back wing. That's something we're not used to seeing in Formula One here in Australia.
Well, the reason they're doing that, Daz, is because Ron Dennis said the other day that it's very easy to copy what they've got if you have a look at it up close. If you take a photograph of it, it's not, it's very hard to scale it down and get it right. So they're very conscious of their aerodynamic advantage, and they're guarding that very closely by putting covers over everything as soon as the car is stationary.
And Darryl, it has been declared legal, by the way. They checked all the rules, and while the teams might have been protesting about it, it has been declared legal.
Yes, there's no doubt about that, Ken. It has been, but there's 7 teams have protested, and there's been a strong rumour that they really want Mercedes-Benz into Formula One. I'll leave it at that. Let's go for a walk down here, though, to the Williams team. The cars are still coming out of the grid. God, they sound good. I'm enjoying this. On the grid, plenty of people, all the colour. It's like a kaleidoscope of smell and noise and sound. And as Jonesy used to do, here's Jacques Villeneuve. He's elected to stay in the car, looking nice and relaxed. We'll try and get a nice shot for you. Well, Jonesy, he's taken a leaf out of your book. Stays in the car, nice and cool, umbrella over him.
Yeah, Daz, I mean, I really think, you're in there. You haven't got people chatting in your ear and saying stupid, non-consequential things to you. You can just, get your mind right and start, relaxing or slowing things down. Because the great secret of being a Formula One driver is to try and slow things down in your mind so they don't come up as quickly as they would normally. And you can actually start that process before the race even starts. But Daz, you are getting a bit excited down there in the pits, and we're waiting up here with bated breath when you get close to a Ferrari.
Yeah, well, I haven't come out yet, but I will get there, you know that, and there will be some excitement. We're going to walk back here now. No, we'll keep going this way. I'm getting directions to go to another McLaren, but I want to show you as many cars as I can. Johnny Herbert's car, he's been going extremely well in the Sauber, but nobody's there at the moment, so we'll just keep walking. There's the covers back on this one as well. I want to come down to see the Prost if I can, because you haven't seen this car up close, and I'm telling you, it is the best colour you've ever seen in your life, the Prost car. It looks absolutely magnificent. It's going to be the French blue, because McLaren's gone back to the silver of Germany, and of course Ferrari the red of Italy, and in the old days the green of England, and Prost has decided he's going to stay with the blue and keep the blue of France, and I think that's fantastic. There are other blue cars, but they don't look as good as this one. That's the Benetton young Wirtz. We'll come back and have a quick look at him, but I've got to go down this far. Come on, my boy, keep following me.
Hey, Darryl, you're like a man on a mission.
Well, mate, he can't keep up with me. These young blokes, I don't know. Here we go. We're almost there. I know it's been a long walk, but I want you to have a look at this car. This is the prettiest car. And AJ, the wings, those side wings that are sitting up like big mirrors, aren't on the race car.
Yeah, Daz, I mean, I don't think they know whether they're a help or a hindrance, quite frankly. I think they obviously give a lot more, they give more downforce, but they also give drag, and they also may upset the airflow onto the rear wing, so they might be detracting from the rear wing, which is obviously bigger than the two side ones. So I think the jury's still out on those as far as the Prost team's concerned.
This is Truly's car, but what about the colour? I hope the camera's picking it up. It is just the best blue I've ever seen, and I just think that's one of the smartest looking Grand Prix cars I've seen in a while. And I know you like the cars to look nice as well.
Well, Des, apparently there's 27 colours or something that go into making that blue, but you're right, it looks absolutely spectacular.
Okay, we'll go over and have a look at Deniz's car now, Pedro Diniz, because he's been going.
Well, look, we've got Darryl. Just have to get in here. We've got a problem out on the track. It's Pedro Diniz, and the car looks as if it's caught fire. They've got the extinguishers out. Diniz is out. It doesn't. I mean, there doesn't look to have been a crash or anything like that, Alan.
No, here we go. We're getting a bit of a look at it now. It's he's coming. Looks perfectly okay there. You can see just a little bit of flames out the back dairy meat. That could very well be a loose injection lead or anything like that that's sprayed a bit of fuel over the exhaust and set that fire off. But gee, You know, it's unbelievable, isn't it? You spend millions and millions of dollars for a two-car team. You travel halfway around the world to come to the Australian Grand Prix, and your car catches fire in the first half of the lap just to getting around to the grid.
I mean, that's the tragedy of it all. He wasn't in a race. He was just driving around very casually to get around onto the grid for the start of the big race, and this thing happens. And that is an absolute tragedy for them because, as Alan did say, they've spent a lot of money getting here. Back to you, Darryl.
Yeah, thanks, Kenny. All right, we've got to get off here shortly, but we've just had the run up here, and I'll tell you what, you're testing Daz's fitness out today. But Daz is going good because here's the Ferrari. I've got to show you Ferrari. Folks, right around Australia. Now, they've put a little rope around here, but look at this. You talk about pretty colours and talk about pretty cars. There it is, the Ferrari sitting on the grid here now. Tom Walkinshaw, he's had terrible luck right over the weekend. That hasn't helped with Deniz, but the Ferraris, can they do the business? Only time will tell. All right, guys, we've got to move. Gee, it's been an experience just to see the people, the excitement, and just to feel the raw energy that sits down on this bit of tarmac down here. I think the calmest people here are the drivers.
Well, I can tell you what, Darryl, it's certainly not you.
Hey, I'm having a great time. This is a party.
Good on you, mate, and it's lovely to see all that sort of enthusiasm leading up to what is going to be a very, very good race this afternoon. There's David Coulthard, and Formula One drivers, they seem to do very, very well socially. There's no doubt about that, and he's one of the pin-up boys as far as Formula One is concerned, a very, very likeable man, and certainly one of the favourites this afternoon. We'll be back right after this. Get ready, the big race is coming your way. We are getting ready for the Australian Grand Prix for 1998, the first of 17 races this year to decide the World Championship. Jacques Villeneuve is the reigning world champion. We are live from Albert Park on this glorious autumn day, around about 25 degrees, and the cars are all in readiness. The drivers are in their cars getting ready for a race that will, in many ways, answer a lot of questions that people have been asking about during the off-season. Can this fellow perform, Alan Jones?
Yes, I think he can, Ken. Patrick Head will be the first to tell you that they're not entirely happy with the car. They're still producing parts and tweaks that he believes will make it go quicker than it already is. But, you know, like all Formula One teams, I guess they're all out there doing the same thing. But, you know, Patrick believes that there's no reason whatsoever why this guy can't do a back-to-back championship.
And there's the beautiful red Ferrari. That's Darryl Eastlake's Dreamtime wish. He just absolutely adores them, as do a lot of people here at the Albert Park circuit. The Ferrari flags are everywhere. They just enjoy a tremendous following, win, lose or draw.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Formula One without Ferrari, it just wouldn't be the same. But you can actually, as Darryl said before, the raw energy, the atmosphere, I mean, it's even flowing up here into the studio. I mean, this is the best time of the weekend, just before the start of a Grand Prix.
There's so much aggression there. You're talking about massive horsepower and a very light machine, power-to-weight ratio.
Oh, absolutely. You're talking about 600 kilos with the driver, and you're talking up to 760 brake horsepower. I mean, it's like sitting on the end of a bullet.
And that around about in G-forces, you're pulling something what?
Oh, I think you're up around 6 or so Gs. But, you know, you can pull enormous G-forces in these cars now just by braking. They're at a stage now where they can almost lift the rear wheels off the deck under brakes.
Well, I just love the way they get all organised for these big races. Everything has just got its place, its time. It's also very, very meticulous. These guys would make the best housekeepers in the world, I would imagine.
Well, I was saying yesterday that even when they go testing in Europe and they go to a circuit, there may not necessarily be anybody around, but they will paint the garage. They will paint the floor of the garage, that grey colour, just so if anyone comes along, or for their own sake, everything is just absolutely immaculate.
Well, they are immaculate, and they are getting ready. We're only minutes away from the Grand Prix. Stay with us. We've got live action all afternoon here on Wide World of Sports. The opening race of the 98 season. It promises to be an absolute thriller. And right now we're going to join a talented 11-year-old by the name of Hayley Aitken, backed by the National Boys Choir, her own unique version of the national anthem.
Supported by the National Boys Choir, a shining new star. 11-year-old Victorian with her unique version of our anthem. Please welcome Hayley Aitken.
Australians, oh, let us rejoice, for we are young and free. With golden soil and wealthful toil, our home is girt by sea. Our land abounds in nature's gifts of beauty rich and rare. In history's page, let every sage advance Australia fair. In joyful strains, and let us sing advance
Absolutely gorgeous. That's 11-year-old Hayley Aiken. She hails from the Gippsland area, the daughter of a farming family, and that would take some sort of courage in front of all these people. But what a magnificent voice, backed by the National Boys Choir, the national anthem. Darryl Eastlake still down there in pit lane. What's the news on Denise, Darryl?
Well, I've just been down and spoken to Tom Walkinshaw, the owner of the team. They're getting their spare car ready. It was the electronics that went down. It all just went down in a bubble. He radioed back to say that the whole thing had collapsed. There was some smoke, there was some fire, but he's A-OK. They're waiting to get back and they're preparing the spare car. So that's the order there on the arrows. Patrick Head, Darryl Eastlake, how you doing? Your friend Alan Jones is up in the commentary box. You're feeling confident from the Williams point of view?
Well, first race of the year is never one that anybody's feeling that confident about, but we're in reasonable shape. Not quite as good as the McLarens, I suspect, but I hope to be there at the end of the race.
Thank you for your time.
Good, thank you.
Patrick Head, one of the geniuses of Formula One. Well, that's how the state of play is down here. Alain Prost just walked past me. He nodded his head. He looks relaxed. He's quite happy with the way his cars are gone. He said he's behind time in preparation, but they've come on pretty strong. So we will see the second arrows. It will be on the grid. And AJ, Patrick looks pretty cool.
Oh, he's a cool customer, Daz. He's been around for a long, long time, but underneath that cool exterior is a real racer.
We're just minutes away from start time at the Australian Grand Prix. Stay right where you are. Only a few minutes away from the Grand Prix Formula One race for the season, the first one at Albert Park. Alan Jones, the grid.
Yes, and McLaren dominate that front row. 6 years since we've had McLaren on the front row of the grid of a Grand Prix. Michael Schumacher and Villeneuve on the second row. Johnny Herbert, great performance from him in the Sauber, from Harold Heinz Frentzen. Fisichella, Irvine and the other Ferrari, Rolf Schumacher in the Jordan, Damon Hill, Alexander Wirtz and John Alesi in the other Sauber in 12. Takagi, good performance from him. Barrichello, Trulli, Mika Salo, Turu, the young Argentinian, Yang Magnussen. Rosset, now the gap that you can see there in 20th position was from Olivia Parnis 21 and Nakano in 22nd, but Deniz is the blank space that you can see there. He will now be starting from the pit row. He's going to start in his spare car because he had trouble with his race car on the warm-up lap or the observation lap.
How's that for a picture, Alan? It is just so very, very good to see something like this happening in Australia and prepared so well here in Melbourne, their third Grand Prix, and the act is really first class this year, no doubt about that.
And what fabulous weather we've got. I mean, these pictures are going to be beamed all around the world now, and that would look good to anybody.
Alan, the temperature in the car, I mean, it can be very uncomfortable when you're sitting on the grid. You've got the bitumen all around you and the sun beaming down, but it's so uncomfortable today, but it could have been very, very bad for them. Oh,
absolutely. I mean, you know, 30-odd degrees and high humidity, that's very tiring for the drivers, but today is just about as perfect as you'll get for race conditions.
The thing is, the drivers never get to see this sort of scene. They don't see too much of the lake. They don't see too much of anything except that track.
No, they'll be very single-minded now. They'll be sitting in that car, getting their minds under control. Well, there you are. See, it's 19 degrees. track temperature of 33. We've got a 1.6 metre wind from the southwest, and the humidity is 58 degrees, so that's just about perfect, Ken.
And the McLarens, they are the benchmark so far here on this Grand Prix weekend, and they're the ones that have really set this place alight. Mika Hakkinen really has given us some very, very funny moments this weekend so far, but it's very, very serious business right now. As they take off the tyre warmers, we are only just a couple of minutes away from the start of the race.
Yeah, well, this is the time now where we're really going to know who's been sandbagging, who hasn't been. But the McLarens are looking very, very strong. I tipped Mika earlier on in the week. I think he's got the raw speed. David Coulthard's a very good race driver, though. He's got a very good race head on him. This bloke, of course, you can never underestimate. I mean, he will give 110% all the time.
How about the width of these cars? They do look like the old Dart now. I mean, they're just so narrow down that nose end.
Well, they've actually widened. Part of the new regulations is that they've actually widened the chassis but narrowed the track.
Yeah. Well, there you are. We are getting ready. The engines are roaring. They'll have their warm-up lap. We are not far away to call the opening round of the 98 World Championship. Martin Brundle and Murray Walker.
So, all set for the Australian Grand Prix as they go out on the formation lap. This, of course, is not the start. It was on this lap that the unfortunate Damon Hill pulled out before the race had even begun in the Arrows last year.
I think Jean Alesi has either stalled or had some technical problem. He's just getting away now, so Alesi will have to start at the back of the field. If he winds his way through the field, he'll be disqualified.
And he wasn't very happy with starting from 12th on the grid as it was, with his teammate Johnny Herbert in 5th position ahead of him. Now you can see the shape of this circuit in the middle of that white line. It's all water, Albert Park Lake.
In fact, Alesi will start 21st because Olivier Panis started even behind him. So 2 problems already, one for Alesi in the Sauber and another for Panis in the Prost, who's had an awful weekend.
Olivier Panis, who actually qualified much higher up and was pushed down to 21st on the grid because when his car broke down yesterday, he left it with the steering wheel off. The marshals couldn't get rid of it. He was fined £2,500 and had his 2 fastest laps taken away from him, which pushed him down to 21st on the grid. But now they're sweeping round turn 11. This is a 16-turn, 3.3-mile lap. There are going to be 58 of them in the race, and who can tell what's going to happen?
And when you're driving around this Albert Park circuit, you have no idea that there's water in the middle. At no time from the cockpit of the car do you sense there's any water around the racetrack, and as you can see, there's plenty of it.
Because in effect, Martin, you're sitting on the ground. You're so low, aren't you?
Well, the cars touch the ground more often than not, especially at high speed. But also you've got the concrete retaining barriers alongside the track, so you're looking up at everything.
Round turn 14, up towards the slowest corner on the track. That is second gear, and you take it at about 45 miles an hour before into the fast turn 16, which comes into the start and finish straight, which they are approaching now. There is turn 15, that slow left-hander I can tell you about as we look down from the helicopter.
And I think if people make mistakes, it's going to be in that corner amongst 2 or 3 others, but that one in particular, drivers have been outbraking themselves. It's difficult to find a reference point on the racetrack there to say, now's the moment to put the brakes on and locking the front wheel.
Now, remember this, the 2 McLarens are on the front row of the grid. Mika Hakkinen is the one you're looking at now. David Coulthard pulls off to Hakkinen's right, back slightly because it's a staggered grid. David Coulthard is famous for his lightning starts.
Coulthard has lined himself up slightly at an angle, look. Slightly at an angle. He wants to get in front of Mika Hakkinen. If he gets away well, he wants to come straight across onto the clean racing line and get in front of Hakkinen. He wants to be into the first corner first, of course.
Now they're peeling off, and when they're all in position, the lights will come on above the drivers, the 5 red lights, one at a time. And when they're all on, there will be a pause of up to 3 seconds. They'll go out, and that is the signal to start.
Alesi has regained his original starting position. I would expect to see him black flagged at a later point, or quite early on in the race, actually.
In come the marshals' boards. 1 light, 2 lights, 3 lights, 4 lights, 5 lights. And it's go, 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 go. And Hakkinen gets a good start. David pulls across in front of Coulthard. And Schumacher gets Villeneuve is in 4th position. Behind Villeneuve is Giancarlo Fisichella in the Benetton, and Schumacher is swarming around all over the McLaren, and he's trying to take him on the outside. Has to drop back. And Villeneuve crowds up alongside, and it looks to me as though they're all going to get round the first bevy of corners, and that will be terrific if they do. No real problems at the start.
For some reason, David Coulthard put his wheels on the grass coming out of turn 2, whether he was checking his mirrors or what, but he certainly wasn't looking exactly where he was going, and slid off wide, had to get out of it, and that gave Schumacher a chance to come back at him, and Häkkinen a chance to pull out a small advantage.
Well, you can see now that it's Mika Häkkinen. Then there is Schumacher, that is Jacques Villeneuve, there is the Benetton, Johnny Herbert is well up there, and they're round towards turn 11 now, up towards the powerhouse, that's the building over the cars now, and they're getting a bit strung out at the front. There is Fisichella, behind him is Johnny Herbert as they go into turn 14. Häkkinen leads, Coulthard is second, Schumacher is in 3rd place, Jacques Villeneuve in the Williams is in 4th position.
Dream start for McLaren, Mercedes-Benz. Häkkinen now looking smooth. Coulthard following up. I would expect there has to be some kind of team orders coming into play in this race at some point. We don't know when, but clearly Ron Dennis and the McLaren team will not want these two drivers, if they have got a clear speed advantage today, pushing each other too hard, or worse still, running into each other. When they choose to use that, if they choose to use it, remains to be seen.
And you can see beautifully in this light those 3 grooves on the front tyres, 4 grooves on the rear tyres, which have reduced the amount of rubber on the ground, reduced the amount of grip, but the drivers have all got used to the new configuration now. They may not like it as much as last year's cars, but from our point of view it's magic, because they're a lot more spectacular. Round the marina, Häkkinen leads, and at the end of the first lap he was 1.5 seconds ahead of David Coulthard, who is now speeding up. Coulthard is faster in the first sector of the second lap than Häkkinen was.
Yes, Coulthard fastest driver on that first flying lap, and now Häkkinen now putting in a fast time and pulling an extra 3/10 away. But the two McLarens comfortably 3 or 4 tenths faster than Michael Schumacher, who's a full 3/4 of a second faster than Villeneuve, stringing out very early, Murray.
Yeah, and Barrichello is in the pits. Rubens Barrichello in the Stewart, which has had so much trouble this year, and he blew an engine this morning and they've had to change it, is in the pits.
I think Barrichello's been in the gravel trap at some point. I think there was a coming together down the field, not seen on our TV screen, but Barrichello having a little coming together as we watch Michael Schumacher on the pit straight.
We've just had a message that Ralph, we haven't seen it, but I can tell you that Ralph Schumacher is off the track, and so on, and off goes the Jordan, Jordan of...
That's Ralph Schumacher. I think that's a replay. That's a replay. Ralph Schumacher and Barrichello. Barrichello taking a very, very ambitious move up the inside of Ralph. That was never going to work because Ralph would not have been looking in his mirrors at that point. They're carrying the steward off there, you can see on the breakdown truck as and let's watch it again. Now look, he's diving up the inside, and that's Magnussen, I'm sorry, that's Magnussen, and Barrichello is in the pits then, and then Takagi behind them, look, who's had such a, and he then runs into the back, look, reverses into Ralph's car, 3 cars out, all over a silly overtaking manoeuvre from Magnussen.
So it looks as though the Stewart team is in real trouble right at the beginning of the race, because we're on lap 3 now, and it would seem that Barrichello is at best in the pits, at worst out of the race, Magnussen out of the race, Ralph Schumacher out of the race, out of the race, Takagi out of the race, and Mika Häkkinen is leading David Coulthard on lap 3 out of 58 by 1.7 seconds, with Michael Schumacher in 3rd place, and Villeneuve in 4th place is already 7.1 seconds behind Mika Häkkinen. Fisichella is 5th, Johnny Herbert is still in that 6th position ahead of Heinz-Harald Frentzen. So one has to say that the 2 Williams cars are not doing well. They didn't do well in the warm-up this morning, and the drivers were worried about some aspects of the handling. But at the present moment, the world champion, Jacques Villeneuve, is down in 4th position, and the gap is increasing all the time between him and the cars ahead of him. Michael Schumacher, David Coulthard second, Mika Hakkinen, race leader, who is now nearly 2 seconds ahead of David Coulthard and pulling away. And as Martin has said, Ron Dennis, the McLaren boss, is going to be watching what happens with these two drivers very carefully indeed. There is Jacques Villeneuve, 4th position. Behind him, Fisichella. You can see that the young Italian, who has switched from the Jordan team last year to the Benetton team this year, is giving Villeneuve a very hard time. Villeneuve on Goodyear tyres, Fisichella on Bridgestone.
Yes, Fisichella's been the next best Bridgestone runner all through practice and qualifying, and appears to have quite a nice car. He's driving it well. He's absolutely blitzed Alexander Wurz, his teammate, through qualifying, and now he's giving the reigning world champion a mirror full of blue Benetton car. But Villeneuve won't be too perturbed about that. He'll be much more concerned with the way that the Ferrari is walking away from him in front.
And I'm watching Johnny Herbert in the background carefully. He's not actually gaining on Fisichella, but he's not losing any ground. In the meantime, Fisichella is inching up on Jacques Villeneuve. Behind Herbert, it's Frentzen, Eddie Irvine in the Ferrari, in the spare Ferrari, I remind you, because he had an engine mapping problem all through practice and all through qualifying, and it seems to have defeated him. He's gone into the spare. Is in 8th position. Damon Hill is now 9th and nearly 20 seconds behind Hakkinen on lap 5 out of 58. And in 10th position is the second Benetton of new boy Alexander Wurz from Austria, who's replacing his countryman, the great Gerhard Berger. And this is the first Australian Grand Prix ever in the World Championship that Gerhard Berger will not have competed in. We miss him too. Jacques Villeneuve now, they're round the marina section here on the outside of the lake into Lakeside Drive. They swing right and then they start bearing left where they are now. They're building up to 175 miles an hour. And paradoxically, the cars can be even quicker this year than they were last year in a straight line, because they have no less engine power, but they have skinnier tyres and the wheels are closer to the body, so the aerodynamics from the point of view of straight line speed are allowing them to go quicker. That's Schumacher.
Yes, less frontal area on the car, and a lot of smoke coming out of the back of Schumacher's car there as he accelerated hard.
No,
there's some more sign. I think that engine is breathing heavily, but he did tend to do that a bit through last season, but not as heavily as that.
And meantime, Villeneuve is now 3.9.
There we go.
Bang! That's it. That's it. No points. Nil point for Michael Schumacher, who retires from 3rd position on lap 6 out of 58, shakes his head furiously, throws away the steering wheel. He was happy enough with himself, but he's obviously very unhappy with the car. And they've worked so hard, Ferrari at Mugello, in testing to try to make that car reliable.
Well, that's not the way he wanted to start any World Championship campaign, let alone this one, after all of the troubles of the winter. We've heard him on the TV saying he really thinks the fans are behind him and it wasn't a problem, and you know, he's going to put it right and he's going to win races. And there he is, already taking an early shower. We're just 11 minutes into the race.
Well, what this means, of course, that the McLarens, as most people expected, have increasingly got things in their pocket. It may well turn into a demonstration race, because Schumacher was 14 seconds behind, and although Villeneuve was pretty close to him, the gap between Villeneuve, who is now 3rd, and Hakkinen, who is the leader, of course, is over 16 seconds. And Giancarlo Fisichella will see an opportunity here. And Villeneuve is gaining, and Coulthard is catching Hakkinen. Now, we're going to start to see a three-cornered battle for the lead, and critical to this Australian Grand Prix is going to be the question of strategy and tactics. Are they going to have one stop? Are they going to have 2 stops? And if they have 2 stops, are they going to spread them out equally, or are they going to have some unexpected pattern?
Well, I would hazard a guess they'll have to go for 2 stops, because there we're going to see Schumacher's Ferrari engine letting go. That would have been at some humongous number of revs, something like 16,000 RPM or something, coming down the pit straight, and Schuey throws away the steering wheel. Unusually for him, look, all sorts of body language, very unusual for him. Normally he's Mr. Calm and Mr. Collected. There it goes, a few £1,000s worth of carbon steering wheel. You can see the ducktail crash helmet of his that they use to get extra air into the airbox, and well, he's going to go back and tear a strip off of somebody. You see the wing on top above Mika Häkkinen's head is like a little flat plane wing. That's actually a mock camera at the moment. That will become a TV camera for many of the cars as the season goes on, but all of the cars are carrying that little wing right at the very top of the airbox, you can see.
Over 1/10 distance. We're on lap 7 now. You're looking at the 2 McLaren Mercedes, and in second position is David Coulthard, third is Jacques Villeneuve, fourth is Giancarlo Fisichella, fifth is Johnny Herbert, sixth is Heinz-Harald Frentzen. Time to leave Albert Park for a little while, but join us again soon.
Back live at the Australian Formula One Grand Prix after 8 laps. It's Mika Häkkinen from David Coulthard, Villeneuve, Fisichella, Herbert and Frentzen. And right now, let's join Charles Stewart.
Yes, thank you very much, Ken. We're with Jackie Stewart. Jackie, we've just seen, of course, Michael Schumacher go out, but both of your drivers have gone out too, haven't they? What happened?
Yeah, it's pretty much a big disappointment for everybody concerned. Michael Schumacher going out, well, that was a surprise to everybody. From our point of view, Rubens Barrichello was a surprise also. The car lost transmission very early in the first lap. It's in a pool of oil right now underneath the car over here. We don't know exactly where it's coming from, but we certainly lost drive. And Jan Magnus had to come and get rid of one of the Jordans. I think it was Schumacher. Ralf Schumacher's Jordan, and he's out of the race as well. That was a collision on the first lap.
So a nightmare start to the season for you?
Yes, it couldn't be any worse than it is, really. It's very, very disappointing for everybody. They've worked 3 nights, all night, to get everything in place. Very disappointing.
Well, Jackie, commiserations, and as always, next time. Back to you, Ken.
Thank you, Charles. And watching the cars go around with the Coulthard and Häkkinen dominating, and McLaren's having it all their own way at this early stage of the Australian Formula One Grand Prix. Let's rejoin our commentators Murray Walker and Martin Brundle.
Well, it's a case of off with the old and on with the new now, because we've lost Gerhard Berger. His place has been taken by Fisichella, who's just 25 years old. He's in a new team, and the new team has got a new designer, new technical director, new boss, David Richards. But they're all pulling together absolutely magnificently. And Nick Worth, the man who designed the Simtech Formula One car with a very small budget, this is his first car for Benetton. It's beautifully clean and simple, and Benetton, like McLaren, decided just before the end of testing that they were going to switch tyres from Goodyear to Bridgestone, and it seems to be coming together very well indeed, because just look at the way that young Fisichella is hanging on to Villeneuve, and it's Fisichella's 24th Grand Prix only. He had half a season with Minardi, and then he switched to Jordan, and now he's pressuring Villeneuve very hard indeed. And David Coulthard is the fastest man on the track. He's just gone round in 1 minute 33.3, which is 2.8 seconds off the lap record put up by Heinz-Harald Frentzen last year. We expected there to be a much bigger gap between last year's cars and this year's cars.
Well, Tuero has already fallen foul of the jump start penalty. Remember, on each grid slot and in each car is a sensor, and if there's any movement between the 5 red lights coming on and then disappearing, then you have a 10-second penalty, which you'll remember well is not a 10-second penalty, because you have to come in the pit lane, stop for 10 seconds, rejoin the racetrack, costs you at least a half a minute.
Yeah, and Tuero's stop will be just down to sheer inexperience and nerves. He's 19 years old. This is his first Grand Prix. He performed extremely well in qualifying, unexpectedly well in qualifying, to qualify 17th in the Minardi Ford. It has the Ford V10 engine this year.
Yes, what he's just learned, I would imagine, when he gets the data after the race, that even by putting the car into first gear, if the car just jumps forward a little bit, even a couple of inches, that is treated as movement. You really do have to put your foot on the brake and select the gear, making sure the car makes no movement at all, to take away any idea of cheating and jump starting.
We've got two races now, haven't we? The two McLarens, 32 seconds ahead of everybody else now, and this one, Villeneuve, Fisichella and Herbert. Heinz-Harald Frentzen is some 6 seconds behind them. Replay at the start.
Replay at the start. Hakkinen gets a superb start there from pole position. Somebody jumping out of this. Tuero in the back taking a huge jump start, I saw. David Coulthard not getting away too well, then has a big run up the inside, and I wondered for a moment if he may lose his front wing on the back of his teammate, but all of the cars somehow making their way through that infamous first turn. There was Coulthard sticking his wheels on the grass, but getting away with it.
Somebody tried to take a bet yesterday that there would be no finishers in this Australian Grand Prix with the heat, the new cars, the new tyres, drivers flying off, first Grand Prix of the year. The bookies wouldn't take him, but there's 15 cars now left out of the 22 who started. Barrichello's out of the race, Takagi is out, and Magnussen and Ralf Schumacher is after that coming together. Pedro Diniz only lasted for 9 laps in the spare arrows before he had to come in, and Nakano is in the pits. Nakano this year is driving in the Minardi and not in the Prost that he was in last year. 2 Japanese drivers, and it looks as though it's an early bar for both of them.
Well, Ron Dennis and the McLaren team will be having a feeling of déjà vu at the moment, seeing their 2 cars out front leading easily, leading comfortably. Remember, they had this situation with Prost and Lauda, and also with Prost and Senna. They're more used to this than anything, and the last 3 or 4 years they've suffered a lot of pain, but at the moment is looking very, very rosy. But you know, the guy who's looking strong, I would say, is Fisichella. If either of these two or both of these 2 McLarens have any kind of reliability problem, Fisichella has done more testing mileage, I would hazard a guess.
Lap 13, Hakkinen leads, Coulthard second, Villeneuve third, 38 seconds behind them, but he's got Fisichella fourth and Herbert fifth right behind him. 6th is Heinz-Harald Frentzen, and the 2 British drivers, Eddie Irvine and Damon Hill, are battling for that 7th position as we take a break. Out of 58, Hakkinen and Coulthard continue their stately progress up front. They're now 41 seconds ahead, but they're ahead of this titanic battle, and Tuero in the Minardi has been in a take this penalty stop.
Villeneuve getting well out of shape there as he plucked down into second gear, still on the brakes, the rear end sliding away. A good chance for Fisichella to move in, but coming through that last corner just cannot stay close enough, and Villeneuve actually pulls away slightly, and Johnny Herbert now homes in on the back of Fisichella. Herbert's car is using its tyres less hard than the Williams. Without any shadow of a doubt, Villeneuve is struggling with something, and I think it's the tyres.
And I don't think he's the only one, Martin, because Frentzen, who is 6th behind Johnny Herbert in the second Williams, is being caught by Irvine and Hill. They're catching him. So, for some reason, it looks to me as though both the Williams have got some sort of a problem. Jacques Villeneuve is undoubtedly holding up Fisichella and Johnny Herbert, but he's using all his racecraft to keep them behind him.
Yes, I'd like to see that battle, actually. That's Frentzen, Irvine, Hill, Wirtz, Trulli and Salo. They're all in a line, and it'd be nice if we could pan back and have a look at them, because it looks quite a good scrap. Just a few tenths between the lot of them.
1.7 seconds covering Frentzen, Irvine, Hill, Wirtz and Trulli, and just behind him, Mika Salo. Now that's good news. Mika Salo is in 11th position in the Arrows. I talked to Tom Walkinsaw just before the race started, and I asked him what hopes he'd got of the Arrows finishing, because it's a new car, a new Arrows engine, which Brian Hart has designed, built and is developing. And Tom said, oh, and Fisichella closing right up on Villeneuve on braking as they go into that slow turn 15. Now out of the start and finish straight, they're coming up into the S's, turn 1 and 2, and they're easing away from Johnny Herbert.
Yes, Villeneuve, I think, is a full 5 laps before if he wants to stay on a 2-stop strategy, a full 5 laps before he can come in and change those boots. This is a good chance for Fisichella now. Down into turn 3. Have a go. Go on, have a go. You can do it. Yes.
No, he can't.
No, he should have. He backed off too early there. I really think he could have got up the inside there, but Villeneuve was pretty late on the brakes. You saw his tyres locked up, but I really think Fisichella could have just eased up the inside there.
This is the experience of Jacques Villeneuve in his 34th Grand Prix, with all that Indy racing on ovals and road tracks in America behind him.
Take a look at Villeneuve's left rear tyre, his left rear tyre. It looks terrible. It's grained up and marked up virtually all the way across the surface that does touch the racetrack these days.
Meantime, both the McLarens in front are flying. We're riding with Jacques Villeneuve now in the 3rd placed Williams Mecachrome as he comes round the sweeping left into the right with Fisichella big in his mirrors. Williams, Benetton, Sauber 3rd, 4th, 5th. Heinz Harald Frentzen is way back behind them, 6.7 seconds behind them in 6th position, and we're on lap 17.
Yeah, Villeneuve's left rear badly blistered now, and if you're wondering what I'm talking about, just compare the 2 rear tyres. It gives you a better feel of what's going on. But of course, inevitably on a clockwise circuit, there's going to be more right-handers than left-handers, and therefore you put more pressure on the left-hand set of tyres, pair of tyres. But Fisichella still cannot get anywhere near close enough to have a go at Villeneuve. That is bad news. We were really hoping these cars would give an opportunity where a car is clearly faster. The blue car is clearly faster than the red car, and he has no way of overtaking him.
And the Flying Finn, as he calls himself, Mika Häkkinen, has got the gap between the fastest lap this year and the fastest lap last year, down to 2.5 seconds as we go to James Allen for news in the pits.
I'll keep it brief, Murray, because I can see the battle is raging. I'm in the Benetton garage, tremendous frustration here. They feel their car is at least 2 seconds a lap faster than it's being allowed to run at the moment. Remember, Fisichella's on the soft Bridgestones as well, so more grippy than the hard tyres that McLaren are using. Quick word on McLaren, though. Häkkinen just a lap ago was given a board saying, cool brakes. There was a lot of controversy about that braking system, Martin, and obviously he's been using it quite a bit.
Yes, you can often see Häkkinen's inside rear brake disc glowing as he's using the whatever brake system they're using on the McLaren. And David Coulthard homing in now. The gap is down to 2.1 seconds, Coulthard to Häkkinen. But there'll be little point in them fighting each other, because there's nobody to beat at the moment. They're just cruising on ahead.
So, Martin, suppose you were Giancarlo Fisichella in this heat. You're the meat in the sandwich. What are you going to do about Villeneuve?
What I'd do about Villeneuve is ignore him, come in the pits and have a set of boots, because I, too, like the Benetton team, feel he's way faster. And I know it'll mess up the strategy, but I think I'd give away that middle run. You'll have to make a longer run, and you'll be carrying a bit more fuel than you should. But I think I would just get in the pits now and then hopefully find some clear track. The team have to work out, they have to look at the computer and work out if they make a good pit stop or a normal pit stop, where that will put Fisichella back in the pack to make sure he's not going to get too much traffic.
Remember what you were saying about Tuero and speeding in the pit lane? He's got a penalty.
Oh, well, he's learning all... he may as well learn them all the hard way on the first day, mayn't he?
Yeah, don't think I'm flirting. I'm not. I'm very sorry for him. I admire him and I respect him. But as you say, Martin, he's learning the hard way. 10 seconds penalty, and he'll be thinking it's a long way from Argentina to Australia for this. But Jacques Villeneuve continues doggedly to hold the racing line, and Giancarlo Fisichella continues unsuccessfully to try to do something about it. And meantime, the gap between them and the two McLarens in front, with Johnny Herbert now giving Fisichella a hard time in 5th position. Herbert, the gap to the McLarens is nearly 55 seconds.
Yes, Fisichella made a small mistake somewhere. We didn't catch it on camera, but that's allowed Herbert to home in. But now that'll be interesting to see now if Fisichella can just immediately close back up onto the rear wing of Villeneuve.
And I'm beginning to feel a bit frustrated. I'm not going to start making criticisms about the producer in Australia, but Heinz-Harald Frentzen has got Eddie Irvine. There he is! Thank you very much! Thank you very much! Now, Frentzen, Irvine, Damon Hill and Wurz, and they are 6th, 7th, 8th and 9th. What a scrap! We've got a scrap for 3rd position, and we've got this titanic scrap, and it's a replica, you see. Frentzen is holding up Irvine, who is holding up Hill, who is holding up Wurz, who is holding up Trulli. Well, there's a bit of a gap between Jarno Trulli, but the two Williams Mechachromes are causing a crocodile of cars frustratedly to weave from one side to the other behind them, as Villeneuve, who is in 3rd position, and Frentzen there in 6th position, strive to maintain their places.
We think Jordan are going to pluck Damon Hill out of the middle of that melee and bring him in for an early stop. Lap 18, 19 at the end of this lap, so probably a very smart move there. May just get Damon ahead of that Williams, which would give him a lot of satisfaction, wouldn't it?
Martin, it's interesting to look at the liveries of the red Ferrari and the red Williams. The Ferrari looks nice and neat and clean. The Williams really looks as though they've loaded a lot of names and logos into a cannon and fired it at the car. It's a messy layout, I think. At least look at Frentzen's red car, and behind him Villeneuve's, Irvine's, as Hill, Damon Hill in 7th position makes the first pit stop of the leading cars, and right behind him Mika Salo in the beautiful black and white arrows. Right.
Mika Salo made an enormous amount of time coming in the pit lane over Damon Hill. He needs a good stop here to get ahead. He needs to make sure he's out ahead of Mika Salo, but more importantly, ahead of Heinz-Harald Frentzen. A good pit stop there for Damon. No, Salo beat him out. Salo moves ahead of Damon Hill.
Wow, but is he within the speed limit? Terrible temptation, of course, to blast past, but Damon Hill's lost a place there. He came in 8th position, and Salo's moved ahead.
Well, Salo had a superb in-lap. He must have really been on it all the way through into the pit lane, and as you saw, he followed Damon Hill in, having been at that point a couple of seconds behind him as they started the previous lap. So good move there by Salo, good driving and good teamwork by Arrows.
Lap 21, there's the leader, Mika Häkkinen. Behind him is the silver... I'm not going to call it a silver Arrows, because to me those are the pre-war Mercedes-Benz cars. But it's a beautiful livery they've got on the McLaren Mercedes. Mika Häkkinen is leading. David Coulthard's gap now is 3.3 seconds. And Mika Salo is now at last getting the chance to show us how good he is. He started his Grand Prix career with Lotus, had a couple of races, then Ken Tyrrell snapped him up. We're back at the battle for 3rd place with Jacques Villeneuve. There is Fisichella. Behind them still is Johnny Herbert. No change for the first 5 places. No change for 6th and 7th, Frentzen and Irvine. Jarno Trulli has moved up into 8th position. Jean Alesi in the 2nd Sauber is now 9th. Alexander Wurz is 10th. And 11th and 12th after their pit stop, Salo and Hill.
That's surprising me a little bit. The Benetton brought Wurz in first instead of Fisichella. I really feel they should pull Fisichella out of there, unless he's on a one-race strategy. Remains to be seen. I'd be surprised, but anyway, let's have a look. But the McLarens are now over 1 minute ahead of the rest of the field at 1/3 distance. At this rate, they're going to lap everybody easily, maybe twice.
Yeah, and what about the rest of the season, Martin? I know this is the first race and we've still got at least 15 of them to go, but can you see the teams closing the gap?
They've got an awful lot of work to do based on this kind of performance, but I can see them trying to throw quite a lot more mud at the McLaren team technically than because they've got 2 more flyaway races now, Brazil and Argentina. It's difficult enough to get the teams there, let alone radically change your car. But Fisichella's still all over the back of Villeneuve, and James is in the pits with some news on tyres.
Looking pretty thrilling at the front here, but just examining Wurtz's tyres, he's using the same hard Bridgestones, of course, as McLaren. And Martin, the wear is fantastic. They look almost brand new.
Well, it's a case of Johnny go, I think, because Johnny Herbert, the winner of 2 Grand Prix for Benetton, the British Grand Prix and the Italian Grand Prix, a much ignored driver in the recent past, and he didn't deserve to be, is really showing his form. And we're expecting Fisichella to come into the pits, and I won't say not before time. I think with Martin it would have been a good idea to bring him in earlier, but Benetton presumably know what they're doing. I was just trying to work out in my head whether it was the remotest bit conceivable that they could be on a one-stop strategy with him.
Well, we'll have to wait and see. I'd be surprised, given that they're on the softer tyres, but we'll have to wait and see as the McLarens move well into the 1:32. The 32.4 there for Mika Häkkinen, still 4 seconds a lap faster than the opposition. That is incredible. I haven't seen that for a long time.
And sticking with the tyres, I mean, McLaren started on the hard compound Bridgestone tyres, which will give them a longevity benefit, and the others with the softer tyres would have a better grip benefit, so it's making the McLaren performance even more astounding.
Fisichella now needs a good in-lap. He needs to stay as close to Villeneuve as he can into turn 15 and bolt for the pit lane, Giancarlo. And now make your best time through the pit lane. There's a chicane down there. We saw Villeneuve in practice go off onto the grass. He's not really attacking that, is he? Well, that was all right. That was better. So there was the white line. He didn't attack it on the way in and jumped on the throttle on the way out. Now, this is a very important pit stop for the Benetton boys. Normally, they are very, very fast. I still think Fisichella was cruising down the pit lane too much.
Before you ask, those strips underneath the car that sprang as he drove over them are earthing strips to get rid of any static. And Fisichella rejoins in front of David Coulthard.
Yes, David.
So this is going to help Mika Häkkinen even more.
David's not been lucky, has he, with the back markers? And this, I mean, Fisichella, this is amazing. Fisichella has to move out of the way to be lapped, Murray.
Yeah. Fisichella is now in 9th position, and he's been lapped by both the McLarens. And David Coulthard had just put up the fastest lap of the race, faster than his teammate Mika Häkkinen, 1:32.356, and that is just 2.2 seconds slower than Heinz-Harald Frenzen's lap last year in the Williams with the wider track and the slick tyres. And we were expecting the cars in these first few races in their narrower configuration and with groove tyres to be something like 4 to 5 seconds a lap slower. It's an incredible commentary on the efficiency of the engineers and designers.
McLaren boys are in the pit lane. McLaren are getting ready for a pit stop. We don't know which one of them will be coming in first, but that'll be Häkkinen lapping
exactly.
Wurtz, I would imagine.
Lapping the Sauber, I'm sorry.
Lapping
Sean
Alesi.
Alesi, who of course has moved from the Benetton team to the Sauber team, and Mika Häkkinen is coming in first, and and here is Mika Häkkinen, James Allen taking him.
Very much, Murray, looking to see what the tyre wear's been like, because so far the Bridgestones that I've seen that have come off the Benetton have been absolutely almost brand new. Even the tyres, the soft ones that came off Fisichella's side. Yep, fantastic wear, no problem at all. He's looking at about 27 seconds, 5 seconds stop time, but about 27 seconds time in total that was been lost. So he should be certainly behind Coulthard, but safely ahead of the Villeneuve-Fisichella battle when he rejoins.
Well, now it's up to David Coulthard, knowing that Häkkinen has gone in, to put in an absolutely searing lap. He's taken the lead, of course, and we can expect him to come in very quickly indeed. But I'm very conscious of the fact that as David Coulthard is getting ready to come in, the two drivers, Häkkinen and Coulthard, are driving under orders, and Ron Dennis, perhaps unfairly, has been accused by some people of favouring Mika Häkkinen. What? Hello? There's a big bang.
I think it's a Minardi.
And it's a Minardi. It's the Ford V10 engine that's gone in the Minardi. It gave a lot of trouble in the Stewart last year. And here is Häkkinen still behind Wurtz, going through now.
I think that's David Coulthard passing a Lacey. Coulthard had terrible trouble all afternoon with back markers, heading towards the pits now. I'm sure David Coulthard will be in on this lap, but he's not going to be leapfrogging Mika Häkkinen because he has had a bad slow in lap passing that Sauber.
So in he comes. Remember, Mika Häkkinen was stationary for 5 seconds. A very, very good stop.
Coulthard running wide on the way into the pit lane there, almost putting 2 wheels on the grass again as he makes his way down to the McLaren boys, and off they go.
And he should be out, well, he will be out well before Jacques Villeneuve, who is in 3rd position, because he was 75 seconds away. He's taken longer than Mika Häkkinen. He had a bad in-lap, so Häkkinen will effectively have increased his lead. David Coulthard goes through, still in 2nd position. Long gap before Jacques Villeneuve comes through, followed by Johnny Herbert now, as a result of Fisichella coming in. And Fisichella dropped to 9th position as a result of his pit stop. On lap 26, the order is Mika Häkkinen leading, and you're looking at David Coulthard in 2nd position. 3rd is Jacques Villeneuve, who's got Johnny Herbert right up under his rear wing. Heinz-Harald Frentzen is 7 seconds behind them. Eddie Irvine is right behind Frentzen. Trulli is right behind Irvine. Then there's the gap to Jean Alesi, who is in 8th position, and the gap is 13 seconds. And Alesi has got Fisichella in 9th place and catching him hand over fist.
So it seems very much now as if the Williams team have decided to go for a 1-stop, which is surprising. That explains why they're 4 seconds per lap slower than the leaders. My understanding, the facts and figures I could find were that on these new groove tyres, putting fuel on board made the car much, much slower compared with last year, and the penalty was not worth it. It was much better to have an extra pit stop, but it seems as if Villeneuve and Frentzen are 1-stopping at the moment. They're 25 laps into the race. Obviously 29, 30 laps is half distance, so you've got to assume they're 1-stopping.
Well, here's Damon Hill, who's made his pit stop. He's in 11th place. He's going to be caught and passed by race leader Mika Häkkinen as they come up to the S's at the end of the main straight.
Many, many rumours, of course, that Damon Hill was offered a drive in this McLaren and turned it down and went somewhere else. Clearly that somewhere else was Jordan as he moves over to be lapped by the McLaren and Mika Häkkinen.
Well, Mika Häkkinen was 3rd last year. Coulthard was 1st last year. The 1997 Grand Prix season started here in Melbourne with a flourish for McLaren. They had a couple of victories subsequently, but it looks to me as though they are very much going to be the dominant force of 1998. The opposition is going to have a massive amount of work to catch them, never mind get past them, because Mercedes, and remember that the Mercedes engine is designed and built in England at Brixworth, and that Mercedes engine is a smaller package this year, designed by Mario Ilian. As a result of that, it can run hotter. As a result of that, they can have smaller radiators. As a result of that, they can build a better tub. Adrian Newey, the man who left Williams to head up the McLaren design team, has done with his colleagues, and remember, it is a team job designing a car, an absolutely superb job. Magnificent car, magnificent livery. The engine is obviously absolutely prime, and the combination of that and the new tyres they've got has put them in a very, very commanding position. This is lap 28, and there is Villeneuve, followed by Herbert. The battle for 3rd place continuing.
Yes, Johnny, on the same tyres, of course, as Villeneuve, not really making a big impression on him, running a strong 4th, but he's got to watch out for Fisichella and Wurtz, funnily enough, 9th and 10th, some way behind him at the moment. They have a much, much faster car, and later in the race, he's going to have to be fending them off.
So on lap 28, let's just run through and see what points we can make. We've said all there is to be said at the moment about the magnificent McLarens, about Häkkinen and Coulthard. Williams are obviously down on performance, and in comes Johnny Herbert in comparison with the McLarens, I was going to say, to finish the sentence. Johnny Herbert makes a nice, neat turn there, crosses the line, hits the rev limiter button, puts the brakes on to slow down to the maximum of 75 miles an hour. He's not far from his pit. The fastest stop we've had so far stationary was that of Mika Hakkinen, 5 seconds. This is a much longer one. It's costing Johnny a lot of time, but a lot of fuel went in then.
Well, if he is one-stopping, of course, it does take longer to get that fuel on board. And Johnny didn't get away very cleanly either. Go for it, Johnny. Who's that coming up behind? That is Fisichella. I'm sure I was right in that Fisichella was too tardy down the pit lane. But let's see if that was Fisichella or Vert.
No, it's Vert.
So Fisichella is still ahead. Johnny's now going to have... Don't let him through, Johnny. Don't let him through.
And Jacques Villeneuve is coming into the pits at the end of this lap from 3rd position. It's going to be very, very interesting to see what happens at the end of that lap, because if Johnny Herbert, who's just managed to stay ahead of Alexander Wurz, can put in a real cracker, he may be able to take 3rd position from Jacques Villeneuve as the French-Canadian exits the pits. Here he is. Jacques Villeneuve then coming in to change his tyres on the 29th lap out of 58. And that, therefore, looks very much like a one-stop strategy. Jacques Villeneuve, right. Into the pit lane, and James Allen, take him over.
Well, indeed, Murray, thank you very much. Had a word with Jacques Claire, Villeneuve's engineer, before the start of this race. I said, what can you do about the McLarens? He said, well, all we can try and do is a crafty strategy. And I got the impression then he was talking about one stop. I'm just interested to see now the tyre wear as these tyres come off. Because obviously the Goodyears have been slower today than the Bridgestones, but nevertheless, they've persisted with them. The Williams team have decided to do the one-stop strategy. Not too bad, but one of the... Oh, he's dropped the clutch a little bit early. One of the 4 grooves in the rear tyre I'm looking at has gone completely, but on the whole, we're not down to the slicks that we expected. However, the left rear is absolutely destroyed, Martin.
Yes, I thought I could see some discoloration on that. Jack was fighting that car. Now he's going to be tempted to use the extra grip of these new tyres. He's going to have to contain himself because he's still got a long way to go. And it's very easy, very tempting to use all of the grip of a new set of boots. But you pay the price 5 or even less sometimes laps later.
Now, I'm going to try my thought process very shortly. But first of all, the top 6 at the present moment on lap 30 out of 58 are Mika Hakkinen and David Coulthard, who are a mind-boggling 63 seconds ahead of a battle for 3rd between Heinz-Harald Frentzen and Eddie Irvine. Jean Alesi has moved up to 5th. Fisichella is in 6th position, and Villeneuve and Herbert, who both stopped, are down to 7th and 8th places as we go to a break.
You're watching the Australian Formula One Grand Prix live from Albert Park in Melbourne. And right now it is just all McLaren. The tyres are working and somebody's very upset. I think it's Mika Hakkinen. But let's check out the placings after 30 laps. Hakkinen, Coulthard, Frentzen, Irvine, Alesi and Fisichella. They're the front runners at this particular point in time, but there's daylight after Hakkinen and Coulthard. And I'm just wondering, Alan Jones, what they're going to say about these revolutionary brakes that the McLarens have. Will they be legal next week?
Probably won't be legal after this evening, I wouldn't have thought, but they're certainly giving them the edge, and I think also the Bridgestones are suiting this particular circuit very, very well.
And the drivers themselves, I mean, they just got the car, they got the cattle to do the business.
Absolutely. I mean, just everything's running right for them at the moment, and they're just stamping their authority over everybody. I can see them virtually lapping everybody. Right,
let's go back to Murray Walker.
Sport's going to realise that Now that Häkkinen has passed him, he's got the second car bearing down on him and move over and let him through. If so, it will be to David Coulthard's net advantage, because the gap, which was 3 seconds between Häkkinen and Coulthard, as we see a replay of the angry gesticulating Mika Häkkinen, has come down to much less than that.
Well, we all gesticulate in racing cars, but really the driver in front cannot see anything. There's no way he can see whatever sign you're making, but you do it out of sheer frustration as Johnny Herbert lets Häkkinen, his ex-teammate at Lotus, go through easily.
Johnny Herbert in 7th position has been lapped by Mika Häkkinen. Let's look back and see where... There's a blue flag. I just saw a blue flag there as Coulthard goes through on the inside of Alexander Wurz and closes up on Johnny Herbert, who will see the silver and black Mercedes, as Johnny Herbert is an experienced gentleman when it comes to racing Grand Prix cars. This is his 113th Grand Prix, and I'm sure he'll move over and let through. But in the pit lane, Louise Goodman has got news about Michael Schumacher.
Well, it sounds like there's an exciting race going on out there, Murray. Unfortunately, I haven't seen much of it. I've been standing out at the back of the Ferrari garage, trying very hard to speak to Michael Schumacher. He spent a long time with Team Bosch Jean Todt, and you can imagine what they were talking about. By the time he did come out, there was a great big scrum of journalists waiting for him. He did have a brief word with us to say that it was his engine that had gone, and then he went straight back into the garage looking very, very depressed, which I guess is what you'd expect.
Keep an eye when we see Häkkinen's car in the braking areas. Hopefully we'll be seeing plenty more of Häkkinen through this race. Keep an eye on his right front. Every time he brakes, there's a lot of black dust coming just off of the right front. As we watch Frentzen there.
And Eddie Irvine behind him. We're seeing now this battle I was talking about. It's the battle for 3rd position, 60 seconds behind Mika Häkkinen and 58 seconds behind David Coulthard. No doubt about who's in front. They've just got to keep going to finish 1st and 2nd in this race. And that will be another McLaren 1st and 2nd, the 2nd in succession, because they won the last race at Jerez last year. And this is the first race of 1998. But Eddie Irvine in the Scarlet Ferrari is now some 1 second behind Heinz-Harald Frentzen, who's keeping him away. The order on lap 34 then is Häkkinen leading, Coulthard 2nd. This is the battle for 3rd. Frentzen and Irvine, followed by Fisichella 5th, Villeneuve in 6th position. Johnny Herbert is 7th and has been lapped. Wurz is 8th and has been lapped. Hill is still running 9th. And the last 2 cars running are Alesi and Panis.
OK, Irvine will pit this time, and so will Frentzen. So the 2 cars are coming in together. Yes, here they go, into the pit lane. This will be an interesting one. It's certainly not going to be for a race win or probably even a podium, but it's certainly a race for points as they scream into the pit lane, hit the rev limiter, 120 kilometres per hour into the garage, virtually identical times. James, what's happening?
Them in together, as you say, a battle for 4th place. But interesting thing about the Ferrari that let go, the engine that let go, is that the temperature gauges went up. Schumacher was deeply unhappy because... Oh, back to you, buddy.
Is Irvine in trouble? He's had a long stop. He's had a long stop, Eddie Irvine. Heinz-Harald Frentzen has increased his advantage over the Ferrari driver, and Fisichella has gone through into 4th position ahead of Eddie Irvine. And look at this! Look at this! This is Häkkinen and Coulthard up front on lap 35. Now we're going to see what is going to happen as far as McLaren team orders are concerned. David Coulthard has caught his teammate Mika Häkkinen. I do not believe for 1 second that Coulthard is going to try and bundle his way past Mika, because if he did and took both of them out, my goodness, I wouldn't like to be around when they walked into the garage.
Well, that would be yeah, not the right place to be, but it's interesting. What could they do? If you look in the past, they used to have a system whereby, remember, there was a big fight between Senna and Prost when Prost felt he was into Tosa in Imola first and Senna repassed him on the exit. They could choose the first corner as the cut-off, the first pit stop as a cut-off, the second pit stop as a cut-off when they can no longer race, or they may say to them, just go ahead and race. It's early in the season, reliability's an issue. If I was them, I think it would be crazy to go and race each other too hard.
You're dealing with a Finn and a Scot. They're not going to do dirty tricks like that, Martin.
They both, these guys have been training so hard all through the winter. They've both been in the gym this morning, I bet you. They're on it. They know they've got a great chance of the World Championship, and they both want to win it. So there'll be some pressure and some frustration going on there.
So, lap 35, this is the battle for the lead. There's a very close battle for third position, 83 seconds behind them. 2 races in 1. Frentzen and Fisichella now. Frentzen in the Williams has been caught by young Giancarlo Fisichella. All the top men, in fact all of them, have made at least 1 stop. There are 11 cars and drivers left out of the 22 who started. We're over half distance in Australia. It's very, very hot, of course. 31 degrees is the temperature here. And it's a testimony to the way that the tyre designers and engineers have first time out for these grooved tyres seemingly managed to get things right, because those tyres on the McLarens are looking nice and matte and in very, very good condition. So can Fisichella do anything? He's catching Heinz-Harald Frentzen. The gap is coming down between them, and Villeneuve is only just in the points, and he's been lapped. That is a bit of a come down for the man who did so well on his debut here in 1996, Jacques Villeneuve, and is the reigning world champion. Villeneuve, of course, was regarding, and here it is, here's Frentzen, here's Fisichella, and behind them, Eddie Irvine. This is 3rd, 4th and 5th. And into the pit lane comes Häkkinen. Häkkinen coming in for a 2nd stop.
It's earlier than I would have expected him to, and he's gone through. He's carried on through the pits. There's nobody in the pit lane. That was earlier than I would have expected. Presumably, Coulthard's gone through. What's Mika up to? He obviously may have misheard something on the radio or whatever. He came in the pit lane, nobody there to see him, and he carried right on through.
And right behind him is Heinz-Harald Frentzen and Fisichella. And behind Fisichella is Irvine. What a turn up for the book this is.
Well, Häkkinen a lap ahead, of course, but how on earth did Frentzen get ahead of Fisichella? Fisichella must have made some kind of mistake after his pit stop, because Frentzen's really leapt up the order into the top 3.
Yep, that's the result of the pit stops, and Mika Häkkinen is clearing off, of course. He's probably very angry with himself inside the motor car there, because he's now 8 seconds behind David Coulthard. Now, I remember Senna making the fastest lap of the race at Donington in 1993 by driving through the pit lane. You're not going to do that here. And it seems impossible to believe that the McLaren people weren't ready for him.
He's really fighting that car. He's pushing a bit now, isn't he? But he seems to be... The car's moving around quite a lot. Either he's got a problem, or he simply misread his pit board, or misheard his radio. He's still out on the racetrack, not pitting this time, and Häkkinen will now be jumping on it to regain that position back to Coulthard. So David Coulthard's going to be in the lead of the race, wondering what on earth's happened to his teammate. He may even assume he's out of the race. No, Coulthard will pass the pits now and at least get the pit board saying that Häkkinen is still in the race, a full 8 seconds, now 10 seconds behind him. James is in the McLaren pit.
Very mystified down here, Martin. Everybody's shaking their heads. Tyler Alexander, one of the team principals, with Neil Oakley, the designer. They're talking to each other, shaking their heads as Bert's behind me makes another 2nd stop. They didn't signal him to come in, that's for sure. However, they have just given him a board saying slow, so I'm not quite sure what's going on there.
Slow, slow, quick, quick, slow. That's what we need. And on lap 38, Coulthard is leading Mika Häkkinen. The lead has changed. 10 seconds gap between them. Heinz-Harald Frentzen and Fisichella are continuing to fight for 3rd position ahead of Eddie Irvine, who is 5th, and Jacques Villeneuve is a lap behind the leaders in 6th position. Time to take a break. out of 58, and David Coulthard, forcing his way through the field, has taken Fisichella, who is in 4th place, and is now going through inside Frentzen, who is in 3rd position. But Mika Häkkinen, who made that amazing... And look at Fisichella!
That's wrong-footed Frentzen, and Fisichella goes up the inside. A nice move there. David Coulthard put a very brave move on to lap Frentzen, wrong-footed him, and Fisichella made the most of it, taking the inside line into turn 9. And off they go. That was a stroke of luck for Giancarlo Fisichella.
And look at Häkkinen. Häkkinen now has caught Fisichella, who's moved up into 3rd position by displacing Heinz-Harald Frentzen. And behind Heinz-Harald Frentzen, there is Häkkinen going to challenge Eddie Irvine.
And Häkkinen is on some kind of mission at the moment. He's in the 31s. He's giving the game away. He's showing how much they were sandbagging by, and really putting his car at great risk by pushing it so hard. There he goes, locking up the wheels. Mika, calm down. Slow down. You don't need to do this. You're miles ahead of the next lot.
The pit lane.
And he's in the pit lane this time for his 2nd stop. And this time the tyres will just about be ready, but only just. Here he comes now, and the tyres, they're taking the covers off as he makes his way down the pit lane. He's taken them by surprise. Anyway, there he is. They were ready for him.
What is going on? They say they didn't signal him in. He drove through the pit lane.
He seems like he's
spinning.
They can't get the left rear nut wasn't done up. They kept the car off the ground. The lollipop seemed to have gone up. It's just all turned to whatever for Mika Häkkinen and his team, because it's just all gone wrong in 2 or 3 laps with some crazy things.
Yeah, it's all gone pear-shaped for Mika, and David Coulthard on lap 41 out of 58 is leading. Mika Häkkinen is still 2nd, of course. Look at this.
Watch the man on the left rear, look. Watch, no, the lollipop's down. That's Mika again. He's dropped the clutch. The lollipop was still down. He's dropping the clutch. The man's saying, I cannot do this wheel nut up until you stop spinning the wheels. And I'm still not sure he got on the wheel.
Martin, Mika is so calm and collected and unflappable. Surely he isn't in a state. He's got a lot of experience at Grand Prix racing.
Well, he could be in a state, because that pit stop, remember, or the non-pit stop, where he just slid down the pit lane without seeing anybody, that's rattled his cage by all accounts. It must have done.
Well, meantime, the genuinely unflappable, calm, imperturbable David Coulthard is very much in the lead now, 31 seconds.
I wonder if the gunman did get back onto that left rear wheel of Mika Häkkinen's, because it seemed to me he still had his hand up in the air saying, I can't get on. You know, the wheel nut spins with the wheel, of course. No way he can line the gun up. It'll tear his wrists off.
Watch that left rear wheel. Is it going walkabout? I sincerely hope not anywhere on this circuit. But on lap 42 with 16 left, David Coulthard leads Mika Häkkinen that way. There is David Coulthard, and Mika Häkkinen is 33 seconds behind him. The first 2 have lapped everybody else at least once. There are 11 cars left in the race. Fisichella in the Benetton in his first race for the Whitney team is in 3rd position, ahead of Heinz-Harald Frentzen, and pulling away, not only pulling away from Frentzen, but gaining on Häkkinen, but he's 67 seconds behind him. Eddie Irvine is in 5th position. There's only about 5 seconds between Fisichella 3rd and Irvine, who is in 5th. Jacques Villeneuve in 6th position has been lapped. Looks like getting only 1 World Championship point. Johnny Herbert is 7th. His teammate Alesi is 8th. Alexander Wurz is 9th. Damon Hill is still running, but way down in 10th position. And Olivier Panis is 11th.
Coulthard, the leader, into the pits for his 2nd stop. I think I'm beginning to understand Williams' strategy better. They've decided they're not racing the McLarens today. They're racing the rest, because there's also a Benetton about to stop. So Frentzen's in good shape. Very calmly into the pit area there for David. There's no panic. He needs to be calm. Give the guys chance to do their job. And it'll still work out fine. 7.7. A beautiful stop. Make sure the speed limiter's on. And nail it.
And he rejoins in the lead as Fisichella, who stopped behind him, accelerates out of the pit lane. Is he still in 3rd position? Where is the Ferrari of Eddie Irvine?
Well, now we can see, I believe, the one-stop strategy of Frentzen and Herbert. I think they're both still ahead of they're both still ahead of Fisichella, so clearly they've decided to ignore the McLarens and race each other.
Frentzen and Irvine. Eddie Irvine in the Ferrari, and the race order now as you watch the leader, David Coulthard, who of course won here last year, finished second to Häkkinen in that rather contrived finish at Jerez at the end of last season, and he's 13 seconds ahead of Mika Häkkinen.
Alesi's blown up. It sounded rough the last time past the pits, and Alesi cruising. Hopefully he'll park it in a sensible place and not drop too many fluids. You can see it's a fairly big internal problem. There's oil mixed with the water coming down there into what I expect is turn 3. It's not dropped too much on the track. And does he turn through the apex? Hopefully not. Or does he carry straight on? Oh, thank you, Jean. Drop a little bit of oil around there. Give the other boys something to think about as they turn up on the scene. Very smart move.
And that reduces gives him less distance to walk home, but that won't please anybody else. David Coulthard crossing the line, and he's now on his 44th lap, and the number of competitors are down to 10. In my mind, I'd estimated 5 people would finish this race.
I hope there's an oil flag out down here for David to tell him that the track is slippery, because we know Alesi's been through there. Yes, he's taking it cautiously, no problem. So I'm sure the marshals were doing their job there.
Well, lap 44 out of 58, race order. Coulthard and Häkkinen, it's still very much a McLaren benefit, but not quite as impressive as the team would have hoped after whatever's been going on with the Häkkinen McLaren. Are first and second in the race with 10 seconds between them. Frentzen and Irvine are third and fourth with 1 second between them. Villeneuve is now up into 5th position ahead of Johnny Herbert, and they have both had 1 stop, and it looks obvious that they're both going through to the end of the race. 7th is Fisichella, of course, has been lapped. His teammate Wurz is 8th. Damon Hill is plugging reliably, but not quickly enough onwards, and is in 9th position. And with Alesi out, Olivier Panis in the sole Prost has moved up into 10th position as you watch David Coulthard, and we join in the pit lane James Allen.
Murray, a bit of concern down here at McLaren. They've seen some smoke coming out the back of Häkkinen's engine. Not surprising, really, the way he's driving. Just to try and get to the bottom of what he was doing. They have absolutely no idea why he came in the first time round, but the speculation down there is that he may have missed his braking point for the final turn of the on the circuit and had to go down the pit lane to use it as an escape road. That's one theory at the moment, but he's not offered them any explanation so far. Second time round they were ready for him, but they weren't expecting him quite as hot. Ironically, of course, last year Alesi couldn't be persuaded to come in at all by Benetton. This time Häkkinen's coming in willy-nilly.
The reason for coming in the pit lane doesn't stick. The pit lane is after the exit of that last of corner 15. So if you make corner 15 at all, you will always be able to make the last corner or the pit lane at your choice. And that's really, I can only assume Mika made some kind of error on his radio judgment or his pitboard judgment as he makes his way through, amazingly, through the back markers, which are guys fighting for points positions.
Well, he's up with the Williams now of Jacques Villeneuve, who is in 5th position. So Häkkinen is fairly racing through the field. And you can see behind him, 6th position, Johnny Herbert. Now, yes, Villeneuve moves over.
And when was is that the first time Villeneuve's ever been lapped in Formula One? I bet it is in 2 years. I bet Villeneuve has not been lapped in Formula One unless he had some kind of problem. Because you know, with a car that's got 4 wheels on it and running fine, he has just been lapped, and he will not be impressed.
Well, that's a pretty Anna-Rakic question, Martin, and I haven't got the answer at the top of my mind. I've got a feeling he has actually. So replies on a postcard, I think.
I am an Anna-Rakic, Murray. You know that.
And this is Wurz going off.
I think it's Fisichella. I think it's Fisichella having a little trip across the scenery there and rejoining the track. A bit of dirt and grass in the side pods, but they do have deflectors in there to try to take it away from the radiator so the engine doesn't overheat. As Frentzen has still got his mirrors full of Eddie Irvine, who's driven a great race, actually. We've not talked much about Swerve and Irvine. He's there in 4th place, giving Frentzen a very, very hard time, despite having that disastrous pit stop when he appeared not to be able to find first gear.
Villeneuve lapped at Monaco 96. Think about it while I talk about Heinz-Harald Frentzen in 3rd position, being chased by Eddie Irvine, looking for a place on the podium. Now, Eddie Irvine was 3rd at the San Marino Grand Prix last year. He was 3rd at Monaco last year. Here is the Benetton of Fisichella coming into the pit lane.
They don't seem to be expecting him. He's damaged the under tray of that car, or the rear wing support. There, James, what can you see?
Standing about 5 feet behind him, Martin, the rear wing has collapsed, and we've seen that with Villeneuve's car on Saturday morning practice. It looks like this time, though, although that was a plane that collapsed on the Williams, this is actually the central pillar that seems to have gone down, and the car looks decidedly bent. It looks like he tried to go through a tunnel that wasn't quite high enough for him. It's coming right back towards me now, so I can see where exactly it's broken, but it's underneath on the central pillar, and there's some damage to the under tray as well. So a bit of a disappointment there for Benetton. They've been looking pretty competitive today. I think they were quite happy.
In fairness to Fisichella, that could well then be the reason why he went off in the first place. And Eddie Irvine is really charging hard.
And then there were 9 with 12 laps, including the one that they are on to go. No battle between Coulthard and Häkkinen for the lead. There's 12 seconds between them. But this is the battle for 3rd position between the red mixture of Frentzen's Williams and the all-red Ferrari. I think Eddie Irvine is going to be there for a little while, so let's take a quick break. Lap 48 out of 58 at Albert Park for the Australian Grand Prix. There are only 9 cars left out of the 22 that started. Coulthard and Häkkinen are way, way ahead. Häkkinen is catching Coulthard, but not nearly fast enough. Frentzen and Irvine and here are fighting for 3rd position, and behind them Villeneuve and Johnny Herbert that we're looking at now are battling for 5th position. 2 Williams in the top 6, 1 Sauber in the top 6, 1 Ferrari in the top 6, and of course very much 2 McLarens in the top 6.
Well, what a great weekend for Johnny Herbert. He annihilated Jean Alesi, his teammate in qualifying, and now he's kept the reigning world champion Villeneuve honest through the entire distance. You may well be right about Villeneuve being lapped in Monaco 96, Mary. Now I know why they kept you around for 50 years.
So, well, Johnny Herbert deserves everything he gets in this race, because last year he was bundled off the track unceremoniously by with the Eddie Irvine coming together. And the year before he only got to the 3rd corner. This is the 3rd time that the Grand Prix has been held here at Melbourne, after it had been held for 11 wonderful years in Adelaide, and the last 3 years have been wonderful too, let me hasten to say. Australia always puts on an absolutely fabulous event wherever it is. Immaculate organisation, perfect administration, lovely people, nice country, super food, marvellous wine. You can't ask for more than that, except good racing. And we've had that year after year, and we've got it right now as we watch the Williams of Jacques Villeneuve being pursued by Johnny Herbert.
Johnny trying hard, locking the inside front wheel there into 15. A little puff of blue smoke every time Johnny's getting on and off the throttle, but not too much at the moment. Hopefully that'll get him to the end of the race. But you can see it's pretty even Stevens down the pit straight into turn 1 as Johnny closes up under braking. And that's Irvine still chasing Frentzen, with the McLaren of the race leader, David Coulthard, coming through to retake them, having made his 2nd stop.
Well, I'm just wondering how much this is going to help Mika Häkkinen, who's got the gap down from 10.2 seconds to 8.6 seconds. But it's inconceivable to me that even if he's right up under the rear wing of David Coulthard, that he's actually going to try to pass him. As I said before, McLaren's are after a 1-2 finish and not a 0-0 finish with both cars in the gravel trap.
I think if I was Ron Dennis, I'd be calling this the end of the the end of the race between the two McLarens if they haven't already done so, because David's got to risk getting past these two who are squabbling with each other. A couple of tough fighters. Remember, David had to put a fairly major move on Frentzen to get past him last time, right? The blue flag is out. They're going to have to pull over, actually, and let him through. But there's no point in having Hakkinen closing in on the back of Coulthard, putting him in under pressure, and then making too brave a move. But Eddie made the move and said, on you go, which is good of him, because that's given Frentzen a bit of a lead on him.
Yeah, he saw the McLaren in his mirrors and waved his hand. OK, come past me, David. There's no point in me trying to keep you back. You're a lap behind. I remember, actually, when Ayrton Senna had that memorable literal coming together with Eddie Irvine in Japan, when Senna hit Irvine after the race, because Irvine had been a lap ahead of him and had the temerity, as far as Senna was concerned, to pass him. So Eddie Irvine moves over and lets Coulthard through. Irvine had a pretty good go at you in the newspapers this week in England, Murray. So they tell me, Martin. So they tell me. We're on lap 51 now. So we've just got the remaining laps up to lap 58. And McLaren, we know now, are telling Mika Hakkinen to just cool it, Mika. Hold station. Stay where you are. We're looking for a 1-2 finish for the second race in succession. Yes, the ever-observant James Allen saw that going out to Hakkinen's pit board for Mika Hakkinen, obviously. And clearly, I think Ron Dennis was thinking, or the team were thinking pretty much the same as me. Don't put David under pressure to make a bold move on this guy, because when David took him last time, it was much too bold. Heinz Harold Frentzen in front of us, sprinting down the straight into turn 1, the right-hander, into turn 2, the left-hander. You'll see the sports centre coming up on the right as they come out of this right-hander, leading into turn 4, the left-hander, then onwards, turn 5. See, this is the risk. If you get caught up in somebody else's accident, that Frentzen there locking his wheels badly, David's eased off a full 2.5 seconds away from the pace his car's capable of, and he doesn't want to go and get caught up in a Frentzen mistake or problem. But you saw in the background Eddie Irvine, who is in 4th position, with Mika Hakkinen closing up on him. It's going to be interesting to see whether Mika Hakkinen passes Eddie Irvine, whether Eddie lets him through, in which case I'm sure that Hakkinen, just to make a point, will close up as close as he safely can to David Coulthard, to say, well, you know, it was still in doubt a bit at the end, but I obeyed orders as a good driver should do. And he's right up behind the Ferrari of Eddie Irvine now, as they come on they're now on their 52nd lap. Irvine does to Hakkinen what he did to Coulthard, moves over. Thank you, Eddie. Well, we're now wondering, James is not so sure that pit board went out to Mika Hakkinen for the slowdown, so Hakkinen homing in on the back of... Coulthard has now passed the Williams, Hakkinen homing in on the Williams to relap it. Well, we'll see what goes from here in the last 8 laps. You always ask yourself in this situation, is there any reason, personal or otherwise, why Frentzen should make it difficult for Hakkinen to get past him? I can't think of any. I've been quickly dredging my memory to see whether there's anything personal between them. I'm sure there isn't. And indeed, there is the proof. Well, if you pass 3 waved blue flags, you're in the pits for a stop and go, and Frentzen doesn't need that at all. And Hakkinen out-braking himself there, running really wide, and that gives Eddie Irvine the chance to close up onto the gearbox of Frentzen, and Hakkinen's still totally committed in this race, isn't he? Indeed he is, and so does Frentzen need to be, because they're on lap 53 now. Eddie Irvine can see the chance of a podium finish for Ferrari. He's in his 3rd season with the team. He has to be number 2 to Michael Schumacher, who gets all the best treatment from Ferrari, quite understandably, in view of A, his brilliance, and B, the fact that they pay him something like £25 million a year. Yes, I did say £25 million a year. So Eddie Irvine, to finish 3rd on the podium, would be doing the best thing he could possibly do for the team and himself against the 2 flying McLarens, because before this race began, Schumacher said, I'll be happy with 3rd. There's Hakkinen still trailing a little bit of smoke that we heard about earlier on.
from the engine just breathing a little bit heavy. But Hakkinen with a wheel on the grass, he's still really going for it. This is a bit strange. This is surprising me a lot.
That free race order, Coulthard on lap 54 out of 58, leads Hakkinen now by 1.9 seconds and closing. Frentzen has been lapped, he's third, he's got Irvine right behind him, fourth. Villeneuve is 24 seconds behind them in fifth position, with Johnny Herbert tucked up behind his rear wing. So we've got three battles of two cars. The two McLarens, Frentzen and Irvine, Williams and Ferrari, and Villeneuve, Williams and Herbert Sauber in the top six. Three cars left, Wurz, Hill and Panis, 7th, 8th and 9th. News from James Allen in the pits.
Murray, the McLaren team just hung out a board for Mika Hakkinen, so again saying cool brakes. I think you must have misunderstood me before. I was saying that they haven't given him any signals. I know it's obvious, obviously, from the times, but now they seem to be telling him to cool it a little bit.
Thank you, James. Yes, a little misunderstanding there, but I still think the net result is going to be the same, that Mika Hakkinen, even if he does catch David Coulthard and he's now on lap 54 out of 58, he's not going to try any heroics, because the results, the potential results, are unthinkable from McLaren's point of view.
Oh, Hakkinen's using all the road as if it's a qualifying lap. Really, there he goes again, look, right to the very, very edge. It's absolutely amazing. He's clearly not yet ready to pay attention to any, I mean, cooling brakes means the same as lift off, means the same as, you know, hold position. It just means slow down. The message is the same.
Well, he's not prepared to pay attention to the instructions he hasn't had, apparently. So he's going to close on David, and this is most definitely putting Coulthard under pressure.
Well, unless I misunderstood James again,
Hello, Mika. Yes. Now, why is he waving his hand?
He's waving to somebody, isn't he? He's pretty happy about something. I think he's probably demonstrating he's not that busy, but he looks pretty busy on some of those corners. But no, as far as I'm aware, he has been held out a sign, cool brakes.
Oh, well, your guess is as good as mine. It won't take long to find the answer, because either one or both of them are going to be in the interview room at the end of this race. And Alistair Watkins, who asks the questions, will doubtless be saying, what was it all about? Why did you drive through the pit lane, particularly? So 3 laps to go at the end of this one, each of 3.3 miles long, for the third Formula One Australian Grand Prix to be held at Melbourne, the 14th Formula One Australian Grand Prix following those years in Adelaide.
OK, Hakkinen has backed off now. Now he has backed off. He's not at all attacking the racetrack, you can see. Just, he's a good three-quarters of a second down in each sector now, and clearly the message has arrived.
54 laps completed, so this one, and then laps 57, 56, 57 and 58 as in team formation. Coulthard leading, Mika Hakkinen second. They go into their 56th lap, having lapped everybody.
David Coulthard has just responded to Mika's slightly earlier attack by getting back into the 32s. He'll be getting a naughty boy sign in a minute too.
And while we've got a moment, that best lap of Mika Hakkinen's 31.6, 1 minute 31.6, is just 1.1 seconds outside Heinz-Harald Frentzen's 1997 lap record in the Williams Renault, the wider Williams Renault with the slick tyres, and it's made a mockery out of the governing body's intention to slow the cars down. If you say that because they're going as fast now as they did last year, they've achieved nothing. In fact, of course, they have, because if last year's cars had been developed and were still on slick tyres, they would have been going even faster here than they did last year. Maybe at least a second, maybe 2 seconds.
Eddie Irvine still 1.1 seconds behind Frentzen, chasing for that final podium position. As we predicted earlier in the race, every runner has been lapped by these two McLarens, some of them heading very soon for their second lapping.
And if Frentzen finishes, it'll be his first Australian Grand Prix finish for Williams.
Coulthard slowing down. Coulthard.
Yeah. And Hakkinen takes the lead. Now that looked like a planned move to me, Martin. That was a deliberate move.
Well, absolutely no question about that, but clearly there must have been some arrangement earlier on in the race that that allowed for that to happen. So David Coulthard making a very clear and conscious effort to allow Häkkinen back into the lead.
Martin, nobody knows better than you do how frustrated and annoyed David Coulthard was at having to defer to Mika Häkkinen in Jerez last year. There's a replay of Häkkinen taking the lead. That was an arranged move in Jerez. It's obviously an arranged move here. I just don't know what could have caused it. It's very, very hard luck indeed for David Coulthard, who drove his heart out. And without knowing the facts, and it's difficult to be too positive, never mind critical, it would seem that he is suffering greatly as a result of the team allowing Häkkinen to retake the lead, notwithstanding the fact that he fumbled his way through the pit lane unexpectedly.
Well, we have to wait and see, of course, as to why Mika came through the pit lane unexpectedly, if it was his error or the team's error or whatever. If it was his error, then I think he's had a very lucky escape.
Well, this is lap 57. Just one 3.3-mile lap after this, and we're about to start it now as the two magnificent McLarens, and those are the right words to use, the 3Ms, the magnificent McLaren Mercedes, go through to start their last lap, with Frentzen still in third position ahead of Eddie Irvine. Those two are going to have to do one lap less than the McLarens, because the McLarens will take the checkered flag. They've lapped everybody behind them, and Villeneuve and Herbert are separated by 0.3 of a second for 5th and 6th positions. Three wonderful combinations up front: 1st and 2nd, 3rd and 4th, 5th and 6th, and behind them Alexander Wurz, Damon Hill and Olivier Panis complete what looked like being 9 finishers of the Australian Grand Prix at Melbourne in 1998. Häkkinen, I wonder if he's actually going to give us a smile in the interview room. He wasn't very communicative before the race began. And Häkkinen now is past the powerhouse into turn 13 in this 15-corner circuit. The left-hander turn 15, where so many people went off in practice, is this one. He's got the last corner coming up now, and whatever, it's a famous, famous victory for McLaren Mercedes and for Bridgestone. It's the first Bridgestone Grand Prix victory, not only first but second as well. Mika Häkkinen wins. There are the euphoric McLaren teamsters, and in the background you see Frentzen and Irvine finishing 3rd and 4th, a lap down. Now we just wait for Villeneuve and Herbert to see who is going to be 5th and 6th.
Well, a formation finish there for the McLarens. Mika Häkkinen taking his 2nd win in Formula One. We have to wait and see why he ended up in the pit lane. Otherwise, it's his 2nd extremely lucky win. But Ron there will be explaining. I'm sure the press are going to be after Ron to understand exactly what's happening.
Right, yes. Ron looking as though somebody's giving him £5 and taking the tenner back. Now there's Villeneuve and finishing ahead of Johnny Herbert, unless Johnny tries something absolutely fantastic on the last corner. Well, he's done it, they're through. So the top 6 of the 1998 Australian Grand Prix at Albert Park, Melbourne. It is indeed a great place for a great race. Mika Häkkinen, McLaren Mercedes, beats David Coulthard, McLaren Mercedes, by 0.7 of a second. And they've lapped 3rd place Heitz Harold Frentzen's Williams Mecachrome, Eddie Irvine's 4th place Ferrari, Jacques Villeneuve's 5th place Williams Mecachrome, and Johnny Herbert's 6th place Sauber Petronas. With Alexander Wurz a lap down in the Benetton 7th. Damon Hill finishes his first race for Jordan Mugen, a lap down in 8th position. Olivier Panis takes the Prost home into 9th place, a lap down. And there were therefore no less than 12 failures to finish.
Well, what a tremendous team performance by everybody at McLaren, including the drivers. and the pit crew. Everybody has done an incredible job, not least, of course, the designers, because the car is just leagues ahead. And Adrian Newey, the aerodynamicist who moved from Williams to McLaren over the winter, clearly has had a major effect there. But also, you know, it's a team of 260 people that end up putting that car on the racetrack, and they're all going to be pretty pleased with themselves today.
And I say again, let's give a big hearty congratulations to Bridgestone, who came into Grand Prix racing last year with some of the lesser teams, and as a result of having done so well last year, McLaren and Benetton took advantage of a contractual situation which allowed them to move to Bridgestone, and this has resulted in the Japanese concern winning its first Grand Prix and second place as well.
Well, that's the race for 1998, the Australian Formula One Grand Prix, and it's McLaren 1 and 2. And I thought that both drivers were equal, Alan Jones.
Yes, Kenny, so did I. I'm not quite sure what happened there. I guess we'll find out soon enough when we go to the press conference. But the only thing I can think of is that perhaps the team inadvertently brought him in, and they felt that disadvantaged him, and therefore felt sorry for him and told Coulthard to slow down and gave him the race.
I got a feeling you might have hit the nail on the head. They probably feel that had not been for that pit stop, which is obviously a foul up somewhere along the line, but if it was the team foul up, then maybe they felt a little sorry for Hakkinen. But I mean, this is Coulthard. He's had to give way to Hakkinen last year. He's done it again this year. He should be 2 or 3 Grand Prix up.
Well, yes, but they get on extremely well. They probably, of all the teams, they're probably the two that get on the best. So, you know, as David said earlier on, what goes around comes around, so perhaps it'll fall his way the next time.
Alan, the cars are, I mean, 8 laps, after 8 laps, nearly 30 seconds in front. I mean, that's just phenomenal, isn't it?
They really have got the wood on everybody at the moment. I think it's a combination of a very powerful engine, obviously a very good chassis, and those Bridgestone tyres.
And the much talked about brakes may have had an influence also. Here we are, see the two drivers. Very, very close, as you said.
Yeah, they get on extremely well.
But here's both are very likeable chaps, particularly David Coulthard, who always had a lot of time for him. I remember when he first broke into Formula One, he joined us in the studio for a bit of a chat, and he was just one of those sort of blokes that you warm to. And I know that he felt many, many years ago that his destiny was to become one of the best drivers in the world, and he's certainly on his way now.
Just very quickly, Ken, with that brake, I'll just explain to people as best I can. There's a third pedal in the car, which will...
Well, Alan, we've just got to interrupt you for a moment. Charles Stewart, you're down there in the pits.
No, we'd like to talk to Ron Dennis. He's on the phone at the moment, so we're just going to try and get his attention.
All right, well, while you try and do that, Charles, we'll keep the ship afloat up here. You can see the fans have come in to check out the winners and all the aftermath that goes with the Formula One GP. You were saying, Alan?
There's a third pedal in the car, basically, which operates the brake on either side of the car. And what it allows them to do, it allows them to keep their foot on the accelerator and the brake at the same time, but it enables the car to turn into the slower corners a bit easier by applying one side of the brake. In other words, if they're going into a corner and they want to apply just the left-hand rear brake, they can flick a switch and put the bias over to that back left-hand one. Now, where the contention comes in is that it should be a human switch as opposed to a computerised one. And people are saying no, they think it's computerised. In other words, the computer knows what corner that the car is in, and when they put the foot on that third pedal, it just brakes the car on that side, which helps the turning in. And doing that, they can keep their foot on the accelerator at the same time.
Alan, how long would it take for other teams to develop such a mechanism?
Well, you know, in Formula One Grand Prix driving, no team really has an advantage for too long. And you'll start to see other teams certainly have that, I would think, as soon as the next race, possibly.
So if it works, you follow the leader?
Absolutely, and try and better it.
Yeah. Well, there's the big crowd down there in pit lane. They're getting ready to see all the drivers, the top 3 up on the podium. Wonderful picture of the events here at Albert Park this afternoon. It's been a terrific day. We would have liked to have seen, obviously, closer racing, but when you have a team like McLaren on fire as they were, it's good luck to them. They're the benchmark for Formula Ones for the year, but as Alan Jones said earlier in the day, after 3 or 4 races, you see the cars doing absolutely different things altogether, so who knows, the gap may close up.
Oh, it surely will, Ken.
It's a great scene, isn't it, AJ? Look at the Ferrari flags. They just dominate everything, don't they?
It's all of Lygon Street down there. But, no, it's great to hear they are onto the podium now. Fantastic.
And we're trying to find out what champers they'll be using for the celebrations, because Martin Chandon is not involved this time. Mika Hakkinen and the national anthem of his country. Nicely done, Mika. I think maybe just a little emotional there, AJ.
Oh, yeah. And now the national anthem of the manufacturer of the winning car.
Beautifully done, and lovely to see the emotion there from Mika Hakkinen. Obviously, it's a victory that means a lot to him. He has a great affinity with the people of Australia and the way that we helped put him back together here a couple of years ago. And a very, as you said, a fellow with a very wry sense of humour. He's got the kangaroo there, and it's nice to see that these two drivers have a good rapport too.
It certainly is. Aren't they they're magnificent trophies, beautifully sculptured. It's in the shape of a steering wheel. They're just great-looking trophies.
And Frenson's going to get the spoils also, a kangaroo for a kangaroo. He's got one on his chest. Now he's got one with the dinner plate.
He actually drove very well today. I mean, at the end, he'll be very happy. I mean, he beat Villeneuve, who's the current world champion, and for the very first race of the season, he stamped, you know, a little bit of status quo in the team, and that won't do his psyche any harm at all.
Ron Dennis, the boss of McLaren.
Yeah, well, one won't be too disappointed to be up there, I can tell you.
He does like to win.
Absolutely. But he runs a very good ship, you know. Everything's immaculate. The garage, the cars are beautifully presented. He really does run a very good team.
And he does run very fast. See how he got out of there so quickly?
Well, he's been up there before.
And it is, Alan, they sorted it out. I think the drivers went out and bought mowing. Okay, there they go. It's a great scene here at the Australian GP. Congratulations to you, Mika. Man who came here with a real mission, and I got a feeling that he knew he had something special. You know, the last couple of days there was an air of confidence, but certainly with a lot of humility.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, they tested very, very strong in the off-season, and they come here with high hopes, and quite rightly so. Look at that, fantastic.
Are we seeing maybe the World Championship coming out, drivers being one of those two fellows this year? Today's form, you've got to say yes.
Well, that's exactly right, Ken. I mean, the other teams have got a lot of catching up to do. The next two Grand Prix are out of Europe. They're the Argentine and Brazilian. So it doesn't make it easy for the other teams to catch up under those circumstances. You know, they may have to wait until they start in the European Grand Prix to get going.
And the Williams team, do you think their cars are that badly off the pace, or are they just going through a developmental phase? Having lost their aerodynamics expert?
I think Patrick would be the first to agree that he's not entirely happy with the car. and they haven't got the pace of the McLarens, obviously. But he did say that he's got a few tricks up his sleeve, and they'll be getting stuck into them as soon as they get back, so we'll just have to wait and see.
But Alan, really, it's like anything in sport, if team sports or whatever, if you get off to a good start, that's all you want, because the others are going to maybe make up a bit of leeway as the year goes on. So this could be absolutely crucial at the end of the season, what happens here in Australia today.
Absolutely can. I mean, every single race counts, and every single point counts, and to get off on a 1-2 in the first Grand Prix, just a dream start for McLaren.
And it's been a long time since we've seen 1 and 2 lap an entire field.
Absolutely. You know, when you get 1 and 2 like that at the first couple of Grand Prix, it really does give you a buffer, and then Ron can really start playing team manager as the season progresses.
Well, David Coulthard's dad would be very, very proud man back in Scotland today. He gave him his first go-kart when he was 11 years of age. His dad has got his own haulage business back there. I don't know whether he drives the trucks quite as fast as David drives an F1 machine, but he's always encouraged his boy to go out there and chase the dream, and he's seeing it being realised both last year and, of course, this year.
Well, David Coulthard actually came to Australian Race to go-kart several years ago, so... you know, he's no stranger to racing things in Australia. And once raced with Jackie's boys' team, the Stewart Racing Team, Formula 3, and did very well with them. So, I mean, he was a Scot with a Scot, and I'm just wondering if Jackie ever gets over this mountain that he's got to climb, whether, who knows, you might see it's a pure Scot business. He's a very, very likeable guy, David. You know, he's not a big noter, and he's just a really nice guy, as you'll find out in a minute when we hear them on the press conference. Well, we'll go down there to the press conference right now.
Congratulations on winning the Australian Grand Prix. A fantastic drive for you, but it didn't go all as planned by the looks of things.
No, it didn't go like we planned. It nearly went like that. After all, the overall result was what I wanted to be. But during the race there was some confusion, and that caused me to come one extra stop, and it was purely misunderstanding in the radio communication, and that really caused me the lead that time.
Because after that problem, you caught up with David fantastically, and then right at the end there, it looked like David let you by. What was that all about?
Well, I just wanted to say for David, thank you very much. It's very fair, I would say, racing, and excellent teamwork. I'm not saying this because it's easy for me to say because I won. I said it because we have quite a special relationship with David, and racing situations like this, what David did was just remarkable. And looking back in the history, I don't have seen many drivers doing things like this, so I have to thank you very much.
Now, you and David, between the two of you, almost lapped the whole field. How come McLaren is just so much better than the other cars at the moment?
Well, it's probably, maybe we can both answer the question, but it's one very simple reason probably. And the reason for that is we have people, we have a package, we have sponsors, which are extremely good, and we all work together in all the areas, and that is the result, and only with that you are able to do things like this, and including, of course, excellent drivers like me and David.
David, how was it for you? Because I mean, you were leading the race there towards the end. I mean, we were all surprised to see you let Mika by. Had you talked about this in detail beforehand?
Yeah, we had. I have to say that, you know, Mika and I have, learnt a lot during the winter, got a lot closer, worked a lot closer together after the Jerez situation, and we had an agreement that whoever was to get to the first corner first, providing the race was to run normally, has in this situation where you have to be very careful with reliability, and there was a lot of question marks over brakes and other issues on this type of track, that you know, we wouldn't challenge that person, because that was the main part of the race. You know, I was pretty confident with that agreement that I would beat Mika to the first corner, but unfortunately today he made a good start. And when it was clear, when the team explained to me what had happened with his pit stop, I had some time to think about it, and you know, I felt that was in keeping with our agreement. So.
Well done. Congratulations, David Coulthard, Mika Hakkinen. Nice sportsmanship there. We are at the Australian Grand Prix. We'll be back in just a moment.